I think I was maybe 12 or 13 years old. I remember sitting on the tailgate of my uncle's truck out in front of my house. It was only a few years after my stepdad died and before I figured out who my real dad was. And I turned to my uncle and I said, "What does it mean to be a real man?" My uncle looked back at me and he said, John Wayne. John Wayne's a real man.
Welcome to Leading Leaders Podcast. 5-minute videos, 5 days a week.
I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, and I have to tell you, that's been more than 3 decades ago. And today, if I ask the same question of a room full of teenage boys, what is a real man? I think the answers would be just as random and varied and opinionated and lack experience as that answer. See, his reason for saying John Wayne was a real man was because John Wayne would smoke a cigarette and drink a beer and shoot a gun and kill the bad guys and fight in a bar fight and still walk out the door and open the door for a lady, and all the ladies loved him. He was a sex symbol as well as being a manly symbol. But it was all of those things of masculinity that today our young boys are told don't act like that. Those were the things that made John Wayne a real man. Of course, over time we've had real men like Robert Redford and the sexiest man alive, John Legend, and The Rock. Is that a real man? Or what does it take to be a real man? Is it physical prowess? Is it chiseled good looks? Is it a fat bank account? Is it the number of women you've been with? It's really hard to put your finger on what is a real man. And here's my dilemma. In working with young men, in working with young ladies, in working with grown men, and working with grown ladies, we have this common expression, especially in the world of social media and Me Too. We also have hashtag toxic masculinity. And my problem is we've slapped a label on toxic masculinity as a label to throw on people when they behave in a way that we don't like. But what we haven't yet properly done is define what in the world is masculinity. I watched and shared a great video yesterday with Lewis Howell and Tom DeLue. And in this interview, they talk about Lewis's new book called The Mask of Masculinity. And he defines a moment when on the basketball court at the height of his success. He's got all the right people lined up for his podcast. He's having great success at his businesses and entrepreneurships. He's got speaking engagements. He's got pretty much everything he wants. He's got a love life with his girlfriend at the time that's just off the chain. It's exactly what he wants his life to be, and yet the pressure is building up to such a degree that he actually gets in a physical altercation on the basketball court. And in his own words, he says, "I ran home and I cried. And I thought to myself, I have everything to lose. Why can I not restrain myself? What causes me to get to the edge like this?" And I think the reality is for a lot of guys, whether they're walking day by day through their life and showing up at work and keeping their head down and their nose to the grindstone and producing the money and producing the sales that they are supposed to, or they're out there in the oil fields grunting and groaning and risking their life and cussing up a storm left and right, or they're pastoring a church, that I think every day there's a little bit of pent up something in every man that needs to find a release. And if he doesn't find a place of peace and safety to release that, it's going to be like a pressure cooker. I saw a picture on Facebook the other day of a lady who got a pressure cooker for Christmas, and for whatever reason didn't use it properly. It crushed the top half of her stove and completely ripped off the hood vent above her stove, busted the cabinet doors and the oven door and the whole thing. Because when you put something under that much pressure without a way for it to get out, something bad is going to happen. The question is, what is the release valve? What is real masculinity to begin with? What is a real man? And if we can't define that, then how in the world can we define toxic masculinity? If you don't know what it means to be a good man, how do you know when you're being a bad man? Well, there are laws. That's a start. But how do you know to follow the right track if you don't know where the right track is? For leaders everywhere, I challenge you to ask yourself that question. Am I being a real man if I am a man? And if I am a female leading men, have I set a proper expectation for what it means to be a real man in my eyes? Do I know that they are clear on what the expectations are? See, if we're not clear on what the expectations are, then how will you know if you failed them? If you don't know what it means to be a real man, to be properly masculine, how can you ever be accused of being toxically masculine? See, I think that's a failure of leadership, and it's under attack by social media, but that's just my opinion. I'd love to hear yours. I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.
Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.